Okay, now after the discussion of the session 2, which is the source of payment, this is again a continuation of that source of payment because it's a critically the lengthy one. Then I have divided it to separate session, then it is easy for you to understand and memorize and allocate your time reasonably. Okay. Then this is the third session under non-resident taxation. I am going to discuss with you all. In that, this is also a highly the theoretical area, but after doing this you are able to do the questions. Okay. Then here I am again coming to this because I need always keep you all alive how we are continue like this. We have done the assessable income of a non-resident person, section 4 under session 1 discussion. Residential status, session 1 discussion completed. Change of resident, section 70, session 2 discussion completed. Source of payment, we are here under section 73. Session 2 we have not completed, we are still in that section. Then that is the starting point of this session theory. Session 3, the continuation of non-resident taxation. It is the continuation of the source of payment. Previously we have done up to section 73 1G, which is the general insurance premium source of payment. After that, now next one is the payment received from transport business. If a non-resident person received a payment from the transport business, or what is the tax implication. Okay. We will come to that. This is section 73 subsection 1H. Payments received by a person who conducts a, what is this, relevant transport business in respect of. What is this relevant transport business? We have to look at this. I am coming to here, relevant transport business. This wording has defined in this section 73. Like which definition we have discussed previously, which is the technical service fee. Can you remember? In the technical fee we have discussed, it is given in the section 73. Likewise, the relevant transport business, it also given in the section 73. We will look at first and we will come to the provision. Relevant transport business means a business of land, sea or air transport operator or charter carrying passengers, cargo, mail or other movable tangible asset. Now this is a common understanding of transportation. Okay, the use in a land, sea, air, all of you all know that. Okay, now we will go. If a person has received income by conducting this kind of the relevant transport business. Roman 1. The carriage of passengers who embark on cargo, mail or other movable tangible assets that are embarked in Sri Lanka other than as a result of transshipment. That means the transportation of passengers and the cargo, that means the goods, mail or other movable or tangible asset, but other than transshipment, which is other than the re-export, it is all on behalf of this all activities if a person has received the income. That's a Roman 1. Roman 2, rental of containers and related equipment which are supplementary or the incidental to the carriage referred to in subparagraph or a Roman 1. That means if you are paying a rental for that containers, the related equipment which are supplementary or incidental, that means it's directly attributable for these activities, then that income also considering as a payment received from transport business. The two payment categories. Clear? Now we will go for the next source of payment, which is 9. It is business of transmitting messages, business of transmitting messages, section 73 subsection 1 Roman 1. Okay. In that, payment received by a person who conducts a business of transmitting messages by cable, radio, optical, fiber or satellite or electronic communication in respect of the transmission of messages by apparatus established in Sri Lanka, whether or not such messages originate in Sri Lanka, which is the installation site or apparatus that may be that particular plant of this transmitting messages. Everything is in Sri Lanka. Therefore, by having that site in Sri Lanka, particular person is earning income in Sri Lanka, then it is the source of payment. Okay. Then 10th one, payment including service fee. Now lamai, in section 73 subsection 1c, we have discussed about the technical service fee. Now this is talking about, now again if we have came to the previous one, transmitting of messages, one kind of a service. Transportation business, it is one kind of the service. Now this is talking about payment including service fee. What kind of the service fee? We will look at that. Payments including service fee of a type not mentioned in paragraph C, which we have discussed section 73 subsection 1c, which is interest, charges, annuities, the technical service fee. Can you remember? Other than that paragraph, and the H is for the this one from transport business. It also other than that. Then I is for the business of transmitting messages. If these three other than section 73 1c, H or I, for or attributable to service rendered or a forbearance from rendering service in Sri Lanka regardless of the place of payment. That's mean lamai, any service or a forbearance from rendering service. The both these the categories, it should be considering as a source of payment. In source of payment, it should be in Sri Lanka, but regardless of the, even the payment may be done from any other country, but service has conducted in Sri Lanka. Under that, under the source of payment, this is the source which non-resident person, if this is derived from a non-resident person, it's the it should be that person shall pay tax in Sri Lanka. Roman 2, where the payer is the government of Sri Lanka, irrespective of the place of exercise, rendering or forbearance. The payment is made on behalf of the, where the payer is the government of Sri Lanka. In that sense, the irrespective of the place of exercise, even it's conducted in Sri Lanka or any other rendering or forbearance, then it is the source of payment. This is it's a commonly for service fees, but other than service fees mentioned in the particular other paragraph as is described in the section 73 1j. Okay. Then next one, 11th one, proceeds of life insurance and retirement, termination and pension payments. Okay, these are, now think that in a resident individual, these are actually even one party, it's a paying party, one party is a receiving party. In most of the cases, the receiving party, or no, all the cases, the receiving party is the individual. Therefore, lamai, you should know about the individual taxation also when it comes to the non-resident taxation. Okay. then these are, if it is a commonly, these are terminal benefits. The proceeds from life insurance, we have discussed about the general insurance under section 73 1G if not mistakenly. Then this is talking about the proceed of life insurance, and retirement termination and the pension payments come to this under section 73 1K. Proceeds of life insurance and retirement termination and pension payments not fall in within paragraph A. What is the paragraph A, Lamai, which we have discussed in the session 2? What is the paragraph A? It is the employment income. Can you remember? It is the employment income. Therefore, other than the employment income, if these things are satisfied, then it is categorized as the source of payment under this section 73 1K. Come to the Roman one. Paid by a resident person other than as an expenditure of a business. What is it? Other than as an expenditure of the business carried on by the resident person through a permanent establishment outside Sri Lanka. Lamai, what is the common name for the permanent establishment outside Sri Lanka? This is foreign PE. This is foreign PE. The foreign PE has excluded. Roman 2, paid by a non-resident person as an expenditure of a business carried on by the non-resident person through a Sri Lankan permanent establishment. Now you can see again the Sri Lankan permanent establishment is linked to the source of payment. Okay, paid by a non-resident person as an expenditure of a business carried on by the non-resident person through a Sri Lankan permanent establishment. Thirdly, paid by or on behalf of the government of Sri Lanka. On behalf of the government, or as the payment has made by the government of Sri Lanka, which is for the proceed of life insurance and retirement termination and the pension payment. Clear? Then it is the source of payment. Next one, source of payment, section 73, continuation. This is see how extent it has captured gift and other ex gratia payments under section 73 1I. Gifts and other ex gratia payments to the extent received in respect of business or investment conducted with which kind of asset? Domestic asset. It is, now you all know the definition of the domestic asset. The gift and ex gratia payments to extent it has received in respect of the two sources of income has given. One is the business, other one is the investment which conducted with domestic asset. Okay. Then we will go for the next source of payment. It is payments not mentioned in above. Now Lamai, up to section 73 subsection 1I, we have subsection 1L, we have discussed each very specific sources of payment. Clear? Each very specific sources of payment we have discussed. Now here this provision, payment not mentioned in above, which is under section 73 subsection 1M, this is talking about the if any source of payment which not captured under that specific provisions, then you have to apply this section 73 1M. You have to apply this section 73 1M. I think it's clear. Now we will go through what is this section 73 1M. Payments not mentioned in above paragraph. Payments not mentioned in the above paragraph in that Roman 1. Made in respect of the acquisition of a domestic asset, incurring of a domestic liability, or realization of such an asset or liability. This part, this realization of the domestic asset, this has tested one of your paper. Okay, then this is talking about acquisition of a domestic asset or incurring of a domestic liability and the realization of such asset. If there is a source of payment, it is categorized under the payment not mentioned in above. Okay. Then we will come to this one, the payments not mentioned in above. This is a continuation in that Roman 2. Come to this very carefully. Roman 2, received in respect of activity conducted or forbearance from conducting activity in Sri Lanka. Now, in that Roman 2a, except in relation to a resident person to the extent attributable to a foreign permanent establishment. Now, Lamai, you can see in many of the cases, this foreign permanent establishment has excluded from this. Why foreign permanent establishment has the excluded, which is, it is relevant to the resident person. The foreign permanent establishment is the PE situated outside Sri Lanka, which belongs to the resident person. Clear? Therefore, the foreign the receipt or any source of payment which relevant to the foreign permanent establishment has excluded, because it is not the source of payment in Sri Lanka. ලංකාවේ ඇතුළතදී කරන ලද දෙයකට හම්බෙච්ච payment එකක් නෙමෙයි. Clear? Then we will go for the Roman 2b. In relation to a non-resident person to the extent attributable to a Sri Lankan permanent establishment or any other activity including sales in Sri Lanka of goods and merchandise of the same or similar kind as that conducted by the non-resident person through a Sri Lankan permanent establishment. This is one of the very important part. The section 73, 1 subsection M. It is telling in relation to a non-resident person, if there is a Sri Lankan permanent establishment, as we have explained, in that including sales in Sri Lanka of goods and merchandise of the same or similar kind, which is conducted by the non-resident person through a Sri Lankan permanent establishment. Now, Lamai, why this is important? This is talking about if that income is attributable to the Sri Lankan permanent establishment, it shall be taken as a source of payment under section 73. Now, you should know what is the meaning of Sri Lankan permanent establishment. It is given in the section 195 of the Act. The 4 paragraph given, in that paragraph, the construction size is more than 90 days and the installation provision of services more than 183 days. The 4th one, the dependent agent. Then can you remember the definition of the permanent SLPE has included the dependent agent also. Under this the Roman 2b, that all the activities considering as the activities of SLPE, from that all the activities, if the non-resident person generating income, it is the source of payment in Sri Lanka. I think now you can understand why the definition of SLPE is important, because under this provision any income attributable to SLPE is a source of payment. Then to know the income attributable to the SLPE, you should know the definition of the SLPE to identify how that income derived. Clear? Therefore, even the online examination, this part has tested this the SLPE, this under section 73(1)(m) this part, and the dependent agent, that story has, the provision has tested. Therefore, the application part of this theoretical area is very important. Now we will come to the in that sources of payment. The next one, Roman 3, made to any foreign entertainer or artist for activities relating to Sri Lanka. It's understandable, any for the foreign entertainer or artist, any activity relating to Sri Lanka. For a foreign artist came to Sri Lanka and done the maybe a show, then as a presenter, then the payment made to him, it is subject to, it is considering as a source of payment to the non-resident person, then it is liable to pay tax in Sri Lanka. Okay. Then this is the end of the discussion of section 73, one of the key section of the act. Then under the source of payment, session 2 we have discussed the half. In the session 3 we have discussed this part. Now since you all know what is the source of payment, this is all of these lamai source of payment in Sri Lanka. That means for a non-resident person, income arising in or derived in Sri Lanka. Next, don't you have a question, if there is a foreign source, what is this foreign source, how it impact to the taxation? Now we will go for next discussion, the theoretical discussion of the section 74, which is talking about the foreign source of payment. Now you all know the source of payment, I will add the word, it's a, since it's derived from Sri Lanka, it's a local. Then this is the foreign source of payment, section 74. Come to this, an amount shall be treated as foreign source to the extent it does not have a source in Sri Lanka. It's very understandable. If any source, if it has not source in Sri Lanka. Now for an example, I am a resident person in Sri Lanka. This hypothetical example, I have a property in Malaysia, then I am receiving income or rent income of that property situated in Malaysia. Clear? Then it is it the source in Sri Lanka? No, it is foreign source. Why? The income is receiving the subject matter, the property is situated in Malaysia. Clear? Okay, then this is the foreign source of payment. Now lamai, I need to take the explanation in between these two income sources, which is income deriving in Sri Lanka and the foreign source, and how it applicable for our taxation. Okay, I will explain it now, which is the income sources under foreign and the in Sri Lanka. Okay, we will come to this income sources. In that, now all of you all know this, that's why I really need to take the link of these two, which is sources from Sri Lanka and next one from foreign source. Foreign source. Okay, then from Sri Lanka, if I have came to the foreign source, I will look at in the two angles. One is, if it is a foreign source, what is the tax implication for the non-resident person, and what is the tax implication for the resident person. This is what you should know. No? Then foreign source, which is given in the section 74. If the foreign source is applicable to non-resident person, my question, this is the only thing you all have to know. If it is a foreign source for non-resident person, the foreign source, my question is, can we tax in Sri Lanka? Can we tax in Sri Lanka? What's your answer? No, we cannot. This is no. This is no. Okay. Non-resident person, there is a write-in error. This should be resident person, RP. Okay. Then can we tax in Sri Lanka? No. Why, Lamai? The non-resident person, we can tax only income arising in or derived in Sri Lanka, the source of payment, or under the source principle. Then if this non-resident person has earned any income in his resident country, can we go and tax it? No. Therefore, Lamai, even in the resident person or non-resident person, you should separately identify what are the foreign source and what are the sources derived from Sri Lanka, and separately should be present the foreign source and the source in Sri Lanka. Clear? Why? For the non-resident person, we cannot go and tax him for a because it has not earned from Sri Lanka. Then it is for the non-resident person. Now what is the tax treatment for the resident person? When it comes to the resident person, I am telling subject to exemptions and exclusions in the Act. For the resident person, what is our concept? World income. World income should tax. Should tax in his resident country. What his resident country for is Sri Lanka. Then if it is so, subject to exemptions and the exclusions in the Act, if the resident person has earned income from the foreign country or foreign source, it should be taxed in Sri Lanka. It should be taxed in Sri Lanka. It should be taxed in Sri Lanka, and then if that foreign source in that foreign country, any tax paid on this foreign source, it should be considered as the tax credit under section 80. Tax credit under section 80, which is foreign tax credit. Clear? These are very important, and you should recognize, even in the resident person, you should recognize foreign sources separately and the local, what he has received, that source separately. Okay. I am again coming to this. To reduce this tax credit under section 80, to reduce this foreign tax credit, this foreign source should be included in the assessable income of this resident person, should be included in the assessable income of that resident person, and on behalf of this foreign source, the tax should be paid in that country. This is the foreign tax credit is for the elimination of the concession given to the taxpayer as the elimination of double taxation. Okay. Now that part done, we will come to this part, the local income local income. Again I am dividing this to non-resident person and the resident person. Non-resident person and the resident person. When it comes to the non-resident person, all of you all know the under section 4, income arising in or derived in Sri Lanka. Income arising in or derived from Sri Lanka. The only for the source of income shall pay tax in Sri Lanka. Now we all know section 73, what are the sources of payment, everything we have done. Then for the resident person, I am adding even from the income received in Sri Lanka and foreign sources, both tax in Sri Lanka. Tax in Sri Lanka. The same thing for the resident person, and the likewise we have done local income for, I am talking about the resident person. Local income should be recognized separately, foreign income should be recognized separately when computing the assessable income from that source. I think it is clear. Now with this explanation, Lamai, I have covered the key sections of the Act. The recognizing foreign source of income separately, recognizing local source of income separately, and how to, what is the tax treatment on that, and the claiming of the foreign tax credit on that. I think it's clear. Okay. Now we will come to the next discussion of the section 79, the restriction on head office expenditure. Restriction on head office expenditure. Then how this head office expenditure is coming, let me explain it also. Now for an example, I will take the example of the branch office of the non-resident person, that means the person incorporated in another country. Then there is a branch office in Sri Lanka or a construction site. There is a branch office in Sri Lanka, which it is a branch office of a foreign country. Branch office of a foreign country. It's established in Sri Lanka, which is a fixed place of business, belongs to the non-resident person. Therefore, this is time being, we will take it as a SLPE, since I have not done the double taxation treaties with you all. Now, with that understanding, come to the head office expenses. Restriction of deduction of head office expenses, section 79. No deduction shall be allowed for an amount incurred by a non-resident person as an expenditure of business. That's why, Lamai, this is very important. This is very important, because in section 79, it's very clearly given, no deduction shall be allowed for an amount incurred by whom? Incurred by a non-resident person as an expenditure of business. There is a business income of a non-resident person. How that business income is deriving? The base is the, since I have not done the double taxation treaties yet, I am using is SLP or a permanent establishment. In every time from the permanent establishment, the non-resident person is deriving what? Business income. Okay. Now first thing, when it comes to this restriction of the head office expenses, you should know it is coming when the computing of the business income of the non-resident person. That's the first thing. Okay. We will come to the rest of it. incurred by the non-resident person as an expenditure of the business carried on by the non-resident person, see the wording, through a Sri Lankan permanent establishment that represent head office expenditure. Now, under the Sri Lankan permanent establishment, there is a SLPE, often which is a non-resident person conducting a business. When you are preparing the income statement of that branch, my example is a branch office. In this branch, if you are preparing the financial statements, in that the income statement, there is a expense so called head office expenses. Now it has deducted. After deducting that expenditure, you are arriving to the profit before tax. This is the basic figure when you are computing the business income of this SLPE. Now the head office expenditure, if it is from the when arriving into profit before tax, if that head office expenditure has deducted the 100% of the actual head office expenditure has deducted, it is not allowed to deduct in the taxation purposes. Not allowed to deduct in the taxation purposes. It has restricted to how much the head office expenditure, where the amount would exceed 10% of the person's assessable income. This is the maximum deduction. Maximum deduction is the 10%. What is the basis for this? To deduct this maximum 10%, what is the basis? From assessable income of that non-resident person. From assessable income of that non-resident person, the up to the 10% you can deduct, but the all rest of the 90% you have to what? Disallow. Disallow. Now when my session 2 discussion, I have mentioned when it comes to the computation of business income, all the provisions which you have learned from resident company taxation is equally applicable for the non-resident taxation, which is starting from the main deduction, which is section 10, 11, then after that specific deductions up to section 12 to 19. But other than that, now can you see, other than that, this provision also there. What is this provision? The deduction of head office expenditure. Deduction of head office expenditure. Clear? This one you have to count in when it comes to the non-resident taxation, income tax computation as of the SLPE. But there is a small thing. What's that small thing? Even in the Inland Revenue Act, the restriction has given like this. But based on the DTA between, if the Sri Lanka and particular the transaction happened country, if there is a DTA between these two countries, you need to go for the business income article. What is the provision given in that article for the head office expenses? You shall not apply this one. Why I am telling like this? In the section 75 subsection 2, it's telling the always if there is a double taxation agreement between Sri Lanka and the respective country, the treaty is superseding the act. The provision of the act we cannot apply. You can tell yes, there is a provision like this, but you have to give your recommendation and the tax application based on the DTAA. Clear? Now Lamai, now you will think if there is a treaty, then why this kind of the provision? In all of every countries we don't have the double taxation treaty. Most of the countries we have. If there is a country where there is no double taxation treaty, all of these provisions are applicable or not? Directly applicable. Directly applicable. Can you remember? Now I need to link all these things. Can you remember the December 2020 online paper in the non-resident taxation question? The first part of the question, it has given there is no double taxation agreement between these two countries. It has very clearly given. If it is so, what you should apply? You should apply the provisions of the Inland Revenue Act. The provisions of the Inland Revenue Act. Am I clear to you? I think yes. Okay, we will come to the question. First let me complete the theoretical areas, then we will come to the questions directly. Okay. Then this is on the restriction on head office expenses. I am highlighting 3 things. In that, the restriction is coming on behalf of the business on behalf of the business carried on by the non-resident person through a SLPE. The restriction is on the head office expenses deducted when arriving into profit before tax. When arriving into income tax liability of this SLPE, the 100% of the head office expenses cannot be deducted. The maximum deductibility is a 10%. The rest of the part should be disallowed. The maximum deductibility is calculated from the 10% is calculated from the assessable income of that non-resident person. Clear? It is as much as possible. I have summarized this part and I have taken the link between the double taxation treaty and this provision. Whatever under the business income article in the double taxation treaty, if it has mentioned the actual expenditure incurred on behalf of the general administrative, likewise the expenditure on behalf of the head office, should be allowed. Yes, you have to allow that. Clear? Now we will go for the next provision, which is tax on remittances, section 62. The head office expenses and the tax on remittances, both of these is going with the in line with the SLPE, in line with the SLPE or a permanent establishment. Then we will come to this provision. Next I will explain. Liability of remittance tax. We are in the section 62, tax on remittances. Liability of remittance tax. Section 62, subsection 1. A non-resident person, who carries on business in Sri Lanka through a Sri Lankan permanent establishment, head office expenses plus remittance tax applicable to the SLPE or a permanent establishment, then shall pay tax on remitted profit. Lamai, what is this remitted profit? It's really important to know. Earn within the year of assessment. Earn within the year of assessment. Before come to section 62 subsection 2, I need to go for definition of the remitted profit, which is defined in section 62 of the Act. Definitions related to this section, section 62, which is remitted profit. Remitted profit. Remitted profit means amounts remitted or retained abroad out of the profits and income of the non-resident person that are subject to income tax in Sri Lanka. Remitted or retained abroad. Even now, for an example, there is a permanent establishment in Sri Lanka. which is belongs to non-resident person, from that permanent establishment, after preparing the accounts, everything, there is a profit to be remitted to the head office. At the time of remitting that profit to the head office, you have to pay a tax. You have to pay a tax. Again, what mean the return abroad? Even you have not remitted, it should earn in Sri Lanka, and its return abroad, it's again considering as it should be remitted. Return abroad out of the profit and income of the non-resident person, see, subject to income tax in Sri Lanka, and any amount received outside Sri Lanka by or on behalf of the non-resident person conducting business in Sri Lanka, again talking about the source of payment, source of income. If simply, if this SLPE has earned income by the conducting business in Sri Lanka, then that subject to tax in Sri Lanka when remitting that profit to the head office or abroad, that particular SLPE shall make a payment of income tax as the remittance tax. But it excludes the dividends paid by a resident company to the non-resident person. Can you remember? The dividend is the, under section 73 we have discussed as a dividend, the source of payment, in that it is included in the income of the non-resident person, but when it comes to the profit remitted, it has excluded if the resident company has made the dividend or declare dividend to the non-resident person. If that income has included in that profit, you have to eliminate that dividend income. Clear? This is the definition of the remitted profit. This is the definition of the remitted profit. Okay. Then I will go to the part which I have kept aside before we have to look at the definition of the remitted profit. Then we will look at what is this payment of remittance tax, payment of the remittance tax. Section 62 subsection 2, section 62 subsection 2. Okay. In that, a non-resident person who has earned remitted profit under subsection 1, that means 62 subsection 1, then above shall pay a final tax on gross amount of the remitted profit to the Commissioner General in accordance with the rate set out in the first schedule. All of you all know, Lamai, tax rates are mentioned in which schedule to the Act? First schedule to the Act. In that, the remittance tax is rate has given as the 14%. Okay. The first schedule to Act on or before the 30th day succeeding the date of making such remittances. On or before the 30th day succeeding the date of making such remittance. Now, for an example, think that you have remitted the profit to the your head office on first. We will take the May. 1st May 2020. You have remitted the profit on 1st May 2020. After that date, within 30 days, you should make the payment. That's why on or before the 30th day succeeding the date of making the remittance. Remit කරපු දවස පහුවෙලා දවස් 30ක් ඇතුළතදී, then you should make the payment on or before the 31st May 2020. Okay, clear? Then what is the tax rate is the 14%. Now, Lamai, when it applied this 14%, when you are applying the 14%. Let me explain a small thing, because not small, it's allocating marks to you. Let me explain this one, how to apply this 14%. You should know all of these things before we are starting doing questions. Okay, how to apply this 14%. Now for an example, this is the example of the SLPE. This is the income tax computation. Income tax computation. Income tax computation for a particular TIN number and the year of assessment. Just think that there is a there is a total assessable income of this much, and then the less qualifying payments. Maybe there is donation to government, there are qualifying payments. Now we have to deduct that. Then we are arriving into the taxable income. Taxable income of this non-resident person. When it comes to the taxable income of this SLPE, in this taxable income, it is the income tax paid in Sri Lanka, which is subject to tax in Sri Lanka. Then the taxable income, it is I will take the tax in Sri Lanka, which is at the rate of 28%, which is at the rate of 28%. I will take as the normal income tax. This is example. As the normal income tax rate, I will take the 28%. Now for the remittance tax. Remittance tax, the rate is 14%. This is the combination of, if there is a gain from realization of investment assets are not there, if so it is the 10%. If it is not there, this is the combination of the income tax liability of this taxable income of this non-resident person. Clear? Okay. Then when it comes to remittance tax, lamai, keep in mind we are computing the remittance tax. Now you are, for the tax purpose, for the assessable income, you are computing the business assessable income from business. Yes, it is correct. It is correct. But lamai, the business income, if it is rupees 100, are you going to remit this one? No, you are not going to remit this one. You are remitting the profit. What is the profit? It is the accounting profit. It is the accounting profit after tax. Accounting profit after tax. Now accounting profit after tax mean, the profit after tax mean, from this one we have to deduct 28% and 14% both. 28% and the 14% both. Then profit before tax, if it is 100, then from this the 28% less, it is 28, then the balance is 72. Balance is 72. This is profit after tax before the application of the remittance tax. For this purpose, if there is a dividend income is there, you have to eliminate that because it has not subject to the remittance tax of the 14%. Now how the remittance tax is applicable? This is the profit we are going to remit. From this profit, you have to make the remittance tax of the 14%. That means this 72 is including of the remittance tax. Then divided by 114 and into the 100. Clear? Divided by 114, 72 divided by 114 into 100 is a net, the 100% one. If you have to directly apply the 14% rate, it's 14, then it's the 8.84. 8.84 is the value. Clear? In every time, in most of the cases, students fail to do this. Then the one thing which I need to communicate here, when it comes to the now most of the cases, this SLPE or a permanent establishment, if according to the past practice, it has tested. If tested, you can gather the gain marks very well. In that, the key points which you should know when it comes to the income tax liability. This taxable income, then this is for income tax liability. Of the non-resident person, it consists two, which is the tax paid in Sri Lanka, and if there is a profit, when remitting the profit to the head office or a foreign country, there is a remittance tax. And I am again adding, if you have any doubt, if there is a gains from realization of investment asset, it is 10%. It is 10%. If the double taxation treaty has given a separate rate, you have to go by that, but according to the act, it's a 10%. Now, this is the composition of the income tax liability of the non-resident person who conducts the business through a Sri Lankan PE. Clear? In that sense, how to compute? Now, you know how to compute this. According to the calculation, you can do this. But the remittance, the remitted amount is not the taxable income. We are remitting from the profit. Therefore, it is the profit after tax. That means first after this 28%, then what is the remainder? 28 or after this, after the all taxes paid in Sri Lanka. Then remainder, this is not what we are remitting, Lamai. After this 72, after deducting the 14%, after paying the 14%, we are remitting. Therefore, this is gross of tax. This is inclusion of tax. Therefore, it should be equal to 114, then 14%. You have to multiply it by the 14. Then this is the correct way of how you all compute in the remittance tax. Clear? Then with this, the explanation of the theoretical part, I thought at the first sight is the good to explain this part also before coming to the questions. I think it is clear. Okay. Now we will come to the next the discussion on this, which is the final withholding payments. Final withholding payments. This is again really important for the, can you remember in section final withholding payment represent by section 88 of the Act. In that section 88 subsection, which is 1A, B, C, it is for the president person, it has given separately. But this section 88 subsection 1D, it has given the provision of the final withholdings relevant to the non-resident person. Relevant to the non-resident person. Why I have taken this here? Because in the next session, actually I need to take the withholding tax rates applicable to non-resident person in different sources as per the first schedule to the Act and the Gazette notifications issued under section 85. And again, I need to have a comparison with the double taxation treaty, because Lama, in every time according to section 75 subsection 2, that you have to apply the treaty. Therefore, without isolately doing the tax rates, withholding tax rate of that sources, it's you all having a good understanding if I can analyze the one of the treaty with you all and give the insight of that, and based on that we can do the questions. Okay, that's why these highly theoretical areas I'm going to cover first. Therefore, for final withholding payments, before go for the tax rates, you should know about this final withholding payments and how it applicable to the non-resident person. Okay, now we will come to this and we will look at what is this provision. Final withholding payments mentioned in section 88. This is final withholding payments relevant to non-resident persons, section 88. As per section 88, subsection 1D, which is a last provision, payments made to non-resident person that are subject to withholding under this division, that's mean under the section 88, that division, or would be subject to paragraph B of subsection 2 of section 84 and paragraph B of subsection 3 of section 85. Section 84 and 85, the two paragraph given, but there is I think there is a small printing error, but we will disregard that, and printing error in the act, we will disregard that and we will come to the explanation. Were disregarded other than payment derived through a permanent establishment. What is the simple understanding here? If the non-resident person received the payment made to non-resident person, see the provision is payment made to non-resident person. In that, if a resident person or another non-resident person make a payment to the non-resident person, that payment is a final withholding payment if it has not derived through the Sri Lankan permanent establishment. If it is derived through the payment has made to non-resident person through the SLPE, then it is not final. In all other cases, it is final. It is final withholding payment. Now we will come to the section 84 and 85. I will take the section 85 subsection 3. I am not going to take the section 84 subsection 2b. Let's go for the section 85 subsection subparagraph B of section 85 in the subsection 3. In that it has mentioned which is in the paragraph 3, yes, it is mentioned that payment made by individuals unless made in conducting a business. This is given, this section, I am referring to the section 85 subparagraph 3 paragraph B. Now in this section it has given that kind of the provision has disregarded. එහෙම provision එකක් නෑ කියලා හිතුවත්, if it has disregarded, then what is the section 85 subsection 3b? It's given this section shall not apply. Shall not apply to payment made by individuals unless made in conducting a business. Now all of you all know, lamai, we are deducting withholding tax for the, if for an example, for section 85 is talking about the specified fee. If I have done it as the business, then the withholding tax is applicable. Even for the section 84, the investment activities, if I have given my property for the business place as the premises for the business, it is subject to withholding tax. But if I have given my property for the residential accommodation purpose? No, the withholding tax is not applicable. Now what it has given in this section? This is telling that provision, if it has disregarded, that's mean for the non-resident person, even the property or the specified fee, if it has done for a business purpose or that's mean other than business purpose, the withholding tax provisions are applicable to them. Why? The main purpose is the whatever the income they are earning in Sri Lanka should be taxed. Clear? Okay. Then other than that, any payment, if I am a non-resident person, there is a SLPE. If I have received the payment from SLPE, then it is not the final, but all other cases it is final withholding payment. It is final withholding payments. Then you know that provision. After that, we can go for the withholding tax rate applicable for each sources. Before that, Lamai, I need to go for that 2 case law provision. Since today's one of the main topic is this SLPE, and we have discussed on the dependent and independent agent, I quickly need to go for that 2 case law provision before winding up the session. Then we will go for that the 2 case law, and again I need to link that 2 case law provision to the definition of the Sri Lankan permanent establishment. Okay, now we will go for the case law provisions. Okay, now we will come to the 2 case law provisions, because if we have done these things, then it's really easy for us to start the next session very in the comfort zone. Okay. Now income tax cases relating to non-resident person. The 2 case law provision, all of you all know now, by repeating by myself, it's familiar to you all. It is the Chivias and Sons Limited versus CIR, and the second one is the Anglo-Persian Oil Company versus CIR. Now, why we should learn these 2 case law provisions? Can you remember, Lamai, when it comes to my theory session, I have mentioned one of my key theoretical aspect is to do the non-resident and international taxation, and secondly tax administration and case law. Even in that, if you have go for your curriculum, in the case law, the appendix in that curriculum 2020, in that these 2 case laws are there, then it is the reference to the non-resident taxation. Therefore, I am covering that 2 case law provisions here. Then these 2 case law provisions applicable for the dependent and independent agent. With reference to non-resident taxation, if the case laws are tested, these are the 2 case laws can be tested under that subject matter, which is whether that non-resident person has earned income from this the dependent agent, or that agent is the independent agent. Clear? Now, why this important, Lamai? Because in the SLPE definition, it has very clearly given the income attributable to a non-resident person from a dependent agent is a part of the, it is the source of payment, it's coming under the source of payment. Under section 73, 1 M Roman B, also it has mentioned. That's why you should know these areas to write and write a strong answer in your examination. Okay. Now we will come to the facts of the case. For this 100%, the entire case I am going to discuss with you all. Okay. Case 1, Chivias and Sons Limited versus CIR, Commissioner of Income Tax. Then what is the subject matter? Income tax sale of goods by non-resident person, agent forwarding intent to non-resident person, agent instrumental in selling of goods, liability if non-resident person to pay tax under section 5 1b, the read with the section 34. These are the all sections in the ordinance. Then we will go for the facts and we will apply it to relevant to us. Facts: the appellants manufactured goods in England and supplied them to Ceylon FX Pereira and Sons, a firm in Ceylon, stocked at the firm in Ceylon. What they are doing is stocked and sold their goods. The local firm displayed sample of the appellant's goods. They had an intent department, stores department, procurement department, which arranged for the supply on orders from local dealers of goods shipped by the appellants and others. They canvasses, now there is this Ceylon FX Pereira and Sons. They canvasses for orders for the appellant's goods from time to time and also forwarded the form of intent address to the appellants if they could not supply the goods from their stock, and received commission from the appellants on all such orders received and executed. There was no formal agency agreement between the appellant and the FX Pereira Sons, which is resident company. The appellant had no sole agent in Ceylon. The Chiviers and Sons company is not has the sole agent in Sri Lanka. Sometimes dealers place orders directly with appellant, and in such cases no commission was paid to the local firm. That's mean dealers directly place in orders to the Chiviers, that appellant company. The question, what is the question? Whether FX Pereira and Sons were acting on behalf of a non-resident person within the meaning of section 34 of the ordinance. In our case, Lamai, whether FX Pereira and Sons were acting on behalf of a non-resident person within the meaning of the source of payment, which is in section, according to your knowledge, I am not linked to the double taxation treatise. Say under the section 73 is that non-resident person is receiving the income from Sri Lanka, income arising in or derived in Sri Lanka on behalf of that non-resident person. The second one, whether they were instrumental in selling or disposing of the appellant's good. That means this non-resident company, on behalf of this non-resident company, the Sri Lanka, the resident company are doing instrumental in selling or disposing the instrumental in promoting, advertising, communicating, displaying, everything. Third one, whether the profit arising to the appellants from the sale of their goods on intent placed through FX Pereira and Sons should be deemed to be derived by the appellant from the business transaction in Ceylon within the meaning of section 34, and therefore liable to income tax under section 5 subsection 1b of the ordinance, which is particular ordinance. This is the question. Now come to the facts. After the facts we will come to what is the decision given by the courts. Held that the firm in Ceylon were acting on behalf of the non-resident person. That's the decision given by the court. The firm in the Ceylon acting on behalf of that non-resident person. How that person is acting? By stocking and displaying and keeping samples of goods of the appellants, and by canvassing orders for those goods, and by receiving commission on those orders as a resident person, I am receiving commission income from the non-resident person. Then the non-resident person is earning income by my activities conducted in Sri Lanka. Secondly, that the firm is Ceylon were instrumental in selling the apparel goods within the meaning of section 34. Third one, section 34 must be read along with section 5, and the effect of section 34 is to include under profit arising in or derived from Ceylon, which is in our act. Section 4 of the act, the income arising in or derived from Sri Lanka of that non-resident person, all profit from the sale of goods where such sale has been brought about through the instrumentally of the person in Ceylon acting on behalf of the seller who is outside Ceylon, and in spite of the fact that legally the transaction of the business or the sale kept outside the Ceylon. Now Lamai, you all know I have read the case with you all. Let me analyze the case. This is the Chiviers and Sons. This is case 1, Chiviers and Sons versus CIR. In this, it has the concluded that this is the dependent agent on behalf of the non-resident person. Now, again I need to provide this thing or explain this much of this, because the student even they know the case law when it apply to the question. You all know Lama, you all 100% know these case laws, but when it applies to the given question, sometimes you all is struggling. Okay, think like, try to, I am not giving my approach to you all. Try to apply like this to the question, then maybe it's easy for you all. First, in every time what I am telling, it is you should analyze the question. Now, in that same way, I am analyzing the case. Okay. Now, there is a resident company. There is a resident company. And there is a appellant which is non-resident company. There is a non-resident company. Clear? Now Lamai, the non-resident company has not came into Sri Lanka. Okay. Now we need to look at, due to the transaction done by this resident company, due to the transactions done by resident, RC denominates for resident company, done by resident company, due to the transactions done by resident company, any income arising or derived to non-resident person for this company. That's the matter, Lamai. You have to look at, due to the transaction done by this resident company, any income arising or derived to this non-resident person. Due to this company, non-resident person has earned income. If so, it is a source of income in Sri Lanka, which that non-resident person received. Am I clear to you? Now, Lamai, lot of students don't understand this is a resident company. Even in the computation has given, they are thinking that, okay, how are we going to compute a non-resident tax in the form of the non-resident taxation of the resident company? No, resident company is a separate thing. This resident company is paying tax in Sri Lanka in a normal manner. paying tax in Sri Lanka. You all know under company tax, resident company taxation, which is under your 30% syllabus area, you all know this 100%. According to the case law, what is their income? The one of the income they are receiving the commission income from their parent. Commission income from this non-resident company. Then normally by deducting expenses according to the accounting standards and the taxation in Sri Lanka, this company is taxed in separately. You have to think other than that. Due to this resident company, this non-resident company is earning the income or not. If we earning income, then the non-resident company what? Shall pay tax in Sri Lanka. Shall pay tax in Sri Lanka. Shall pay tax in Sri Lanka. It is combinedly under section 195 SLPE and the definition of SLPE and section 73 subsection 1M Roman 2b. Roman 2b. Clear? This is the link. Now, how? Now you need to prove due to transactions done by resident company, how that non-resident company earned income. Now you have to analyze what, Lamai? You have to analyze the transactions done by the resident company. Without analyzing the transactions done by the resident company, you cannot write, you cannot tell the non-resident person has earned income. Now for this case law provision, by analyzing the transactions done by the resident company, what you should know, the Ceylon FX Pereira, which is resident company, is the conducting or doing promotional activities. Promotional activities on behalf of the promotional activities on behalf of the goods selling by this non-resident person. Then they are placed in the order. They are placed in the orders. And in their showrooms, what they are doing, they are acting on behalf of the non-resident person. They are instrumental in selling. The canvassing, instrumental in selling. Instrumental in selling. Instrumental in selling. And again, they are the placing orders and the giving the communication in between the orders and instrumental in selling, and in the showroom they are the keeping stocks, and it's a nice word in the display in the goods. Displaying the goods. Okay. These are the transactions which resident company doing on behalf of the non-resident company. Now how I have taken this, just reading the case law. Even in your question in the examination, these things are given. Only thing you have to summarize and take. Okay. In that sense, now resident company doing promotional activities. Due to that promotion, non-resident persons goods are can be saleable condition. Then place in the orders for that particular customers. This Ceylon FX Pereira company is placing the orders. Even the non-resident person is in abroad, the resident company is doing these activities. Instrumental in selling. Again, promotional activities, the canvassing and the brand, the communication of the brand, everything is doing by this resident company. Stocks. When the customer places the order in the intent department, the stocks everything is maintained, and displaying the goods. My showroom, I am displaying the goods of this non-resident person. Due to all these activities that resident person doing in Sri Lanka. Now ask the question from you, the non-resident person is earning the income or not? My answer is yes. Yes, non-resident person is earning an income in Sri Lanka. Therefore, even the non-resident person has not came into Sri Lanka, the non-resident person, the Chiviers and Sons, is earning income in Sri Lanka. Therefore, shall be liable to pay tax in Sri Lanka, shall pay tax in Sri Lanka. How? The section 195 definition and SLPE, sources of payment, section 73(1)(m), Roman 2b, and since it is source of income under section 4, it is going to be liable. Now, what is the source of income? Even is business, employment, other or investment. Since it is through SLPE, what is this income, Lamai? This is the business income of the non-resident person. Clear? Okay. This is the analyzing of the first case law provision, which is Chiviers and Sons versus CIR. Then in the final decision, the resident Ceylon FX Pereira company has acted as the dependent agent of the non-resident company. Therefore, non-resident company has earned the income from Sri Lanka. Clear? Okay. Now we will go for the next case law provision. The second one, case 2, Anglo-Persian Oil Company versus Commissioner of Income Tax. Since you have this knowledge, the understanding of this case law is a little bit easy. Okay. Anglo-Persian Oil Company versus Commissioner of Income Tax. We will come to directly the facts of the case. This was a case stated for the opinion of the Supreme Court under section 74 of the Income Tax Ordinance. Okay. The assessee, that means appellant, is the Anglo-Persian Oil Company Limited, registered in the United Kingdom, and its agent in Ceylon is the Anglo-Persian Oil Company Ceylon Limited. The appellant company entered into contracts in London with ship owners whose ship call at the various ports including Colombo. What's their business? They are supplying oils to the particular ships. In Colombo, the appellant company had no place of business but stored its fuel oil with its agent. The Ceylon company, which trades in fuel as part of its business. This is very, very important. The Ceylon company trades fuel, selling fuel oil as part of its business under their ordinary course of business. Under their ordinary course of business, their ordinary course of business is the pumping oil to the many customers including ships. In that their ordinary course of business, they are the selling fuel of the clients of this Anglo-Persian Oil Company Limited. Okay. The appellant company undertook to supply fuel oil for the requirement of the shipping company's vessels at certain named port including Colombo and at a stated place. The UK company also, the many places they are distributing the oil. Then the shipping company on its parts binds itself to buy from the appellant company, that means from the UK company, all the oil requirement of its vessels at the named ports and the total estimated tons of oil for all the ports are stated. That means all the key decisions taken by this Ceylon, this company, Anglo-Persian Oil Company Limited, which is in the UK. The UK company is taking all the decisions and they are deciding what are the ports, they are pumping of the oils and all the contracts, that requirement it vessel, it also decided by that UK company. The Sri Lankan company is not doing anything on behalf of their transactions. Only they are doing the pumping of the oil. The minimum quantity which the shipping company undertakes to buy and the minimum quantity which it may require the appellant to deliver during the period. It also fixed by the particular vessel company and the UK company. Are stated. Payment is to be made in London. Payment is not on behalf of the UK company. Any payment is not received to the us. Then payment made to the London by cash on receipt of the appellant's agent, the telephonic advice of the quantity delivered. What I am doing as a Sri Lankan agent, I am sending the document to the UK company by telling this is the amount, or sorry, this is the quantity of the fuel which I have the pumped to the particular ships. Then telegraphic advice of the quantity delivered. Each delivery shall constitute a separate contract. The appellant has the right to suspend or cancel the contract in the event of the shipping company failing to make the payments provided in the contract and in certain other contingencies. Now you can see, Lamai, all the major decisions are taken from the UK company. The cancellation of the orders, what is the quantity of the fuel which I need to deliver to that ship, and what is the price is decided by the UK company. All the money is depositing to the UK company. Now up to now, like this one, the Sri Lankan company, resident company in Sri Lanka has not done anything on behalf of the non-resident person other than under their same business of fuel pumping. They are pumping fuel to the ships, the ships which are belongs to the contract signed by that UK company. Only that they are doing, but it is if it is Anglo-Persian Oil Company in Ceylon, if I have taken their normal business also that. Okay. Then each delivery shall we have discussed this. Suspend, cancel the contract in the event of the shipping company failing to make the payments provided in the contract and the certain other contingencies. The Ceylon company stores the appellant's oil and its oil in tanks built on premises used in the Ceylon company for their own business. Then lamai for on behalf of UK company, this Ceylon company is not established the fuel tanks, nothing. ඒගොල්ලන්ගේ තියෙන fuel tanks වලටම මේගොල්ලන්ට දෙන්න ඕන fuel they have stored, and when the delivery comes they are doing. Okay. When a ship belongs to the shipping company arrives in Colombo, irrespective of the Ceylon company, this is what they are doing. Now please understand, the ship came to the Colombo, the representative of the Ceylon company visit the ship. They are visiting the ship and ascertains the requirement of oil. Second one, ascertain the requirement of oil and the required quantity. What is the quantity? Brought in liters and belonging to the Ceylon company and delivered to the ship. ඒක ළමයි මේ UK company එක වෙනුවෙන්ම කරන දෙයක්ද? No. This is their business. Under the business, as the one client, they are doing this transaction to this UK company. Okay, that's what you should do, should understand very carefully. And Ceylon company and deliver the ship. The document of delivery and acceptance is signed by the representative of the ship and the Ceylon company. Documentation is signed by Ceylon company and the representative in the ship. A copy of these documents is sent by the Ceylon company to the appellant in London. Even we are not keeping a record of these transactions, so the copy is we are sending to that Ceylon, the UK company which is in London. Now, this is the fact. How long the facts are, everything for you to take the information, whether to decide is this the Ceylon company is acting on behalf of the non-resident person as a dependent agent. If it is independent agent, do we have an issue? No. If so, it is excluded from SLPE as well as this section 73 1M Roman 2b. Okay. Now come to the decision of the court. Held that the property in goods passed to the shipping company at the time the contract was signed, the Ceylon company being merely an agent for the deliver of the oil. But it has given a wording, merely an agent for deliver the oil. My business is delivering of oil. A business එක කරන ගමන් I am delivering the oil of that Ceylon, the Anglo-Persian oil company in UK. The mere delivery of oil in Ceylon by them will not bring the profit under the category of profit arising in or derived from Sri Lanka within the meaning of the our section 4 of the Inland Revenue Act number 24 of 2017. Secondly, that the word disposes cannot clear and the intelligible contractual relations between the agent in Ceylon and the dispose and was not intended to refer to such a detail as a mere delivery. If the agent in Ceylon did not actually effect the contract, or if he was not instrumental in effecting, yes, he is not, the non-resident would not be liable on the profit arising on the contract. Now, if your question has given like in the independent agent scenario, lamai, in your answer, this bolted one should be included. What is it? Under your recommendation, if the agent in Ceylon, you have to apply it to the given question. If the agent in the Ceylon did not actually effect the contract, or if he was not instrumental in effecting it, the non-resident, what is the final thing, would not be liable on the profit arising on the contract which done in Sri Lanka. Thirdly, the section 34 is intended to include contracts which have been entered into as a result of effort of the agent in Ceylon of a foreign principal, even when such contract have been finally concluded outside Ceylon. It's given the intended to include contracts which have been entered into as a result of effort of agents in Ceylon of a foreign principal, even when such contracts have been finally concluded outside Ceylon. All the contracts, it is finally concluded outside the Ceylon. As the agent, the Anglo-Persian Oil Company Sri Lanka, they have conducted their business as the independent agent, not as the dependent agent. Okay. Then this what the I really need to explain, since the Chivias and Sons one I have explained, this Anglo-Persian is a vice versa provision of this, therefore it's understandable, but each word is important word I have explained to you all. Thereby now you all know the independent agent and the dependent agent, how it applicable for your non-resident taxation with the case law provision. When it comes to the case law provision, you should apply the case law provision to prove your answer. Then that's all. Okay. Now since I have done this case law provision, let me give this mind map to you all with reference to this case law provisions. The two case law provisions we have done. Case law provisions, in that the one case law is for the dependent agent, other one is for the independent agent. Independent agent, other one is for dependent agent. When it comes to independent agent, what is the case law provision? Anglo-Persian Oil Company versus CIR. When it comes to the dependent agent, Chivias and Sons Limited versus CIR. Okay. What is the link? What is the link of the dependent agent to the non-resident taxation? Okay. Here the both we need to look at the link of these two case laws. If it is the first you need to apply the same provision, resident or non-resident. Resident or non-resident you have to look at. How to look at whether resident or non-resident? It's in the section 69 of the Act. Section 69 of the Act, you need to look at whether resident or non-resident. And the secondly, if it is non-resident, if it is first lama, you have to confirm, we cannot now before applying any case law, you have to determine whether this resident or non-resident person. Then resident or non-resident determine. If this is non-resident, you have to go for section 4. What is section 4? Assessable income. Assessable income of the non-resident person, it's based on the amount arising in or derived in Sri Lanka. Thirdly, okay, he is a non-resident. If that person is non-resident, how am I going to capture that person? How are you going to capture that person under section 73, source of payments? Source of payments we have discussed up to A to M. Then section 73, if it is so, section 73, source of payment. Now I am linked to, I am coming to this one. This one excluded. Even under my double taxation treaty, since we are in here, I am telling, even in the double taxation treaties, independent agent has excluded. Okay, the dependent agent has included. This is independent agent has excluded, therefore non-resident person, no tax. No tax due to independent agent. Due to independent, you have to take into consideration. due to independent agent, no tax. But I am coming to here due to dependent agent. Due to dependent agent, yes, there is a source of payment. What is a source of payment? It has given in the section 73 1 M Roman 2b. Roman 2b, link with the SLPE definition. Later we will add this to the double taxation treaty. Okay, SLPE definition in section 195, in that definition para D. Para D Roman 2. Para D Roman 2. That's all, Lamai. That's all. This is as much as possible. I have summarized the 2 case laws, and not only the summarizing, I need you to take an eye opener. How you all going to apply this to the given scenario, Lamai? That's the end solution. That if you know the 100% of theory, if you don't know how to apply, it's really difficult to take the 50 marks. You should know the theory, you should know how to apply based on the given action verbs. I am every time repeating these things. Then when analyzing the question and how to approach to the question in the non-resident taxation, lot of students is struggling without knowing how to approach to the question. All this provision they know. Literally, Lamai, for SL3 corporate taxation student, without knowing these things, you are not going for the examination for sure. Then only thing, you all don't know the way how to apply. That's why even from the theoretical part, I am taking the application part in fully. Okay. With this, I am concluding the session 3 of the non-resident taxation. We will meet with another session with the more question and the less theoretical part. Okay. Thank you very much.